Right then, with your permission, I'll start.
Whenever you're ready, sir.
We all ready, JC?
Yeah, rolling. Big up.
Great. I thought I'd start off just by talking about some news stories and inviting you guys to talk about ask some questions about some news stories, because it's been a while since I've been here. I've had a bit of a hiatus.
We noticed.
And so I thought I'd just start off by talking about a couple of news stories to get things going. However, while I've got some news stories I want to talk about, does anybody want to bring up a news story that they would like comment on? Just as a bit of a news roundup.
I would like you to comment on the fact that the Russians were blamed on Friday for an explosion which took place in Hayes, which took out Heathrow.
I mean, the thing is, I don't think that the government would make such an accusation randomly or without some kind of suspicion. Whether those suspicions are grounded or not is questionable. The reality is that the UK is supplying arms to Ukraine, and from the Russian perspective, they see that as arming their enemies. The truth is that as a country and as a Western civilization, we're getting drawn increasingly closer to an all-out confrontation with Russia. And this would be a travesty of the First Order. And the reason why it would be a travesty is because Western elites have spent the last 10 years telling every white working class man, every white Christian, that they're the enemy, that they're the problem, that they're the ones that are the oppressor and the villains. They're introducing a legal system in this country in which people who are white-skinned are going to be discriminated against in the courts. And then they're going to expect those same people to fight if we end up in a conflict with Russia. And my advice to everyone in this country is simply to say that the elites are not worth fighting for. Our soldiers should not be going to Ukraine, though obviously I do feel very sorry for what's happening to Ukraine. I condemned it at the time when the invasion occurred. But the idea that we should go and fight against Russia for these elites is to me just objectionable to the nth degree. We shouldn't, and we need to get rid of these elites. They squandered an opportunity to draw Russia in as an ally at the fall of the Berlin Wall, at the collapse of the USSR. There was an opportunity to realign Russia and draw it into a greater Northern Hemisphere alliance. And they squandered that opportunity. Not just on their own, that's also partially because of the Russian elites as well. And as a result, now we're a few steps away from a possible war with Russia. And Sir Keir Starmer's idea of sending troops over to Ukraine as a peacekeeping force is ultimately a terrible idea. So I don't know if they were responsible behind Heathrow, possibly.
Final question. A couple of weeks ago, as you know, the Disciples of Christ were outside the BBC with a protest as a direct result of discrimination against Christians. Would you like to make a comment on that?
Yeah. I mean, you can see clearly that the BBC has a patronising double standard when it comes to raising concerns about minorities. How quickly it talks about Islamophobia in India. How quickly it talks about Islamophobia in Burma. How quickly it talks about Islamophobia in China. And yet, when 70 Christians in the Congo are butchered it doesn't even make the news. When Christians are slaughtered in their thousands in Syria by Islamist dogs, jihadi dogs, along with Alawites, up to 7,000, some reports say, of Alawite Christians being butchered by jihadi dogs in Syria in a 48-hour period, it barely makes the news, if at all. And it was precisely because of these things that the Disciples of Christ, which is a Christian street protest movement, organised a protest outside the BBC to call out that double standard. Because of a family engagement, I wasn't able to make it myself. However, I want to applaud the Disciples of Christ as being exemplary about how Christians should be acting. We should be protesting. We should be using the fullness of our democratic rights. We should be using the fullness of our civil rights to stand up for our own people. And when Christians are being persecuted in every single Islamic country in the entire world, without a single exception anywhere, how can we not speak up about that? And why is the BBC silent about that? The truth of the matter is that in the eyes of the liberals, the lives of Christians is worth less than that of Muslims or other groups. And that kind of double standard and hypocrisy needs to be called out. And we need to be better as a community at calling out liberal double standards. Any questions on any sort of news articles? I'm catching up with the news. So JC and then you.
What's your opinion, Bob, on the school? I think up north of England.
Yes, I heard about it. It's Easter celebration. Yeah. So just to show that at the heart of multicultural ideology is a deep-rooted, a deep-seated Christophobia. We've seen an example, and it's not the first, but another example of the hypocrisy of liberals in their treatment of Christians in this country. They want to talk about inclusivity, and they want to talk about cultural sensitivity. How inclusive is it, and how culturally sensitive is it to cancel the Easter celebrations in your school? And yet there is a school in the north of England. I don't know if anyone's got the exact name of the school.
Yeah. I don't know if the name's there, but I just got it just now.
Yeah, let's have a look. Yeah, schools traditional. Let's have a look. Do we have the name of the school?
I'll try and find it.
Yeah, maybe someone can find it.
I'll try and find it.
But we've had a head teacher saying that they're not going to celebrate Easter in our inclusive, tolerant society. Christians, this is your fault. This is your fault because you aren't confrontational enough. This is your fault because you don't stand up for yourself and your own culture enough. This school deserves protests outside of its gates.
Norwood Primary School.
Norwood Primary School. What's the name of the head teacher?
I don't know. Her name was there just now.
This school deserves
Miss Mander, M-A-N-D-E-R.
Miss Mander needs to be challenged. She needs to be challenged publicly as to why she thinks discriminating against Christians is okay. Now, I will put this caveat in. If it turns out that Miss Mander has cancelled all celebrations of all religions in her school, then my point is invalid because she has been fair to everybody. But if the only religion that is having its celebrations cancelled in that school is the Christian one, then Miss Mander needs to be sacked for discrimination against Christians. She needs to be blacklisted and never allowed to teach or lead another school ever again in this country. Imagine if there was a teacher that banned the celebration of Eid, or said that we shouldn't celebrate Ramadan, how long would that teacher be in a job? How long would it be before they were pulled up by the local educational authority, dragged over the coals, and lost their job? And so we see from root to branch, from top to bottom, that there is discrimination against Christians in this country by the liberal elites. But they are just being liberal. The fault rests with you. The fault is yours for not challenging them strong enough. The fault is yours for not going out and protesting, for not demanding that she be sacked. You're the weak ones. You're the cowards that don't stand up for your Christian heritage. Find your courage. Find your valor. Find your belief. Find your commitment to your heritage and start standing up for it. Mrs. Manda should be sacked, and there should be protests outside of that school until she is sacked. And the Christians of that town and that region should be outside of that school in their thousands, demanding that she is gone.
Say it again, please, Bob. Say it again.
Christians in that town and in that region should be protesting outside of that school until Miss Manda is fired for discrimination against the Christian peoples of these islands.
Big up, big up, big up, big up, big up.
Is it Norwood, South London, or another one?
Oh, you'll have to look it up. I don't know exactly. It's in Southampton, apparently. Any other questions on any news articles that people want me to talk about?
What's your word due to our King Charles? Yes, opening the doors. Yeah, to the St. George's Chapel for Muslims breaking their fast.
Right. So, ladies and gentlemen, when Elizabeth the Great of blessed memory died, I wrote an article saying that King Charles shouldn't take the vows to become the defender of the faith. And the reason why I said that is because I happen to think vows are important. If you make a vow, you're obliged to keep it. Put your hand up if you actually agree with me that people should keep their word. If you make a vow, you should honour it. Well, King Charles, as a constitutional monarchy of a liberal secular humanist state, cannot keep the vow to defend the faith. He is unable to do so. And he has demonstrated that. Was it in a chapel?
Yeah, St. George's.
Are you sure it was in a chapel?
St. George's Hall.
St. George's Hall.
That's what they called it, yes.
And in the scriptures, it says as Christians that we should not be unevenly yoked with the unbeliever. What does the worship of Yahweh have to do with the worship of Baal? What does the temple of light have to do with darkness? Iftar is a celebration of the Islamic faith. For Christians, this is a false religion. A Christian cannot celebrate a false religion. That's why as Christians we can't go on pride marches or celebrate Pride Month. That's why as Christians we can't celebrate Ramadan or Iftar or Muhammad's birthday or the Hindu festival of Holi or Yom Kippur of the Jewish people. We can't celebrate these things because our faith says that we cannot mix light with darkness, we cannot mix truth with falsehood. And so King Charles, by celebrating Iftar, has not only demonstrated that he is not discipled properly in the faith, he has also broken his vows to be a defender of the faith, because he, as king and as a Christian monarch, has set a terrible, horrendous, abominable example to Christians in these islands by suggesting that we should celebrate a false religion. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, King Charles should not, and future monarchs should not be made to vow to defend the Christian faith. And the Church of England should be disestablished from the state. The monarch and Christians should call out this monarch for his poor understanding of Christianity. As Christians, we can no more celebrate Ramadan than Muslims can celebrate Christmas. And no one condemns Muslims for saying that they can't celebrate Christmas. So no one should condemn Christians for saying that they won't celebrate Ramadan or Eid or have an iftar meal. Any other topics of the news that people want me to talk about?
Brilliant answer. Thank you so much.
What's your thoughts on the pyramids, Bob? The fact that they found an image, heated image or infrared image, that would appear that there are columns that would support the pyramids, top of the pyramids. Are you aware of that news?
I am neither aware of the news, nor do I care.
Next question.
I got a question for you. Like the gentleman said, I wasn't going to say it yet. Let's talk about Tommy Robinson. And earlier on this week, the court found that he's not being put in isolation. He's in segregation. So he lost his case. What do you have to say?
So the case that happened in court was a court case asking for an emergency review of whether Tommy Robinson is being treated fairly and equally under our prison system. Tommy Robinson has spent over 100 days in isolation. Under the UN and other human rights definition, that constitutes torture. Tommy Robinson is a political prisoner inside the UK. The reason why he has spent 140 days in prison is because he has challenged our liberal elites about the way that they are governing our country and about the way they turned a blind eye to Muslim rape gangs that for 40 years have targeted white working class girls. And because he exposed the activities of the courts to cover up the truth. I believe that a just government would free Tommy Robinson immediately, pay him reparations for the unfair way that he has been treated, and to sack the judges, the Crown prosecutors, and many police officers who have politicised their office in bringing charges against him and in the way that they've abused the legal system to go after him. The reality is that you don't live in the society you think you do. We live in a society, ladies and gentlemen, in which if you challenge the elites will come after you and they will punish you through the process. If they want to get you, they'll find something to make it stick. And that's the truth about our society. It has been captured by a progressive internationalist elite that want to dominate our courts, our police, our judiciary, to silence any opposition. And our society, my voice is going, nothing I can do about that. And our society has been internationalized by these elites. I'm going to ask you to step in a minute so I don't have to try and project my voice as much. Thank you very much. Our society has been internationalized by international elites, which means that our institutions are no longer serving the people in this country. They are serving the internationalist ideology of said elites. And those institutions are being prostituted for that ideology. The United Kingdom, along with Western Europe, needs a Trumpian revolution. It needs a Trumpian rebellion to overthrow our elites democratically and remove them from power. And that is the mindset that we must all have, so that we can capture our state again, so that the state serves the people and not the internationalized elites that have captured it. Any other questions on any news topic that's been in the news recently? Going once? Going twice? Clearly my voice is not used to doing this. I've been on a break for a long time. So any questions about any aspect to the Christian faith? This is your chance, if you've got one.
Cashless society in the mark of the beast. How are you going to bring everyone together for Christianity?
So he asked the question first. So there are some Christians who believe that in Revelations, where it talks about a mark of the beast, that this is something that suggests that we will have a cashless society. That's one possible interpretation, but it is not a guaranteed interpretation of the text. The text does not demand of us an exegesis that says society will become cashless. However, a cashless society empowers our governments even more to control our lives. A technocratic society is emerging in which technology limits our freedoms more. If you want to know what that looks like, look to China today. In the Christian faith, we believe that an Antichrist will emerge, and that Antichrist will prevent those that don't have the mark of the beast from buying or selling. We've already seen with the COVID jabs and the banning on people from buying or selling in some parts of the world, if they didn't have a COVID jab, that people are willing to accept the idea of limitations on your ability to buy and sell if you don't go along with the collective. The idea of individual freedom to trade is a bulwark against the Antichrist and a bulwark against totalitarianism, as is free speech. Once you lose the ability to speak freely, all your other rights are more easily taken away. Because if you can't speak up, your rights can be taken from you. You must defend your right to speak, because that's the foundation stone by which you secure all other rights, including your right to trade.